at Ready, Jet, Set, Go. Here at Ready, Jet, Set, Go, we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly in travels. So maybe once in your life you have had some problems like a delay, you lost your passport, you lost your wallet, or whatever happened. Like, things happen when you are traveling. And actually, we have a guest tonight, and something also interesting happened. Corey Sarsku, FCAS, is an actuary working in Chicago who loves to travel off the beaten path. He enjoys bouldering, exercise, cooking, reading science fiction, and fantasy. So hello, Corey!
Hello, how's it going?
Good, good. So I like the way that you have described yourself. So why did you say your choice is beaten path?
Well, I feel that there are several destinations that a lot of people really like to go to. You hear Paris, you hear London, and I've taken a different approach. A lot of the places I've gone to are not necessarily at the top of everyone's list. I think my favorite vacation of all time was actually to Moscow, Russia. I've been to Iceland. I went hiking in the mountains there. I just was driving along. I saw a mountain I liked. I got out and I started climbing it. That was a lot of fun. And I think now I've been to a lot of more uncommon destinations. Maybe it's time to be hitting some of the more popular ones as well. But I love traveling, and I think my idea of traveling encompasses a broader view than a lot of people's. I don't necessarily have to be staying in 5-star hotels. I can do Airbnb, maybe even camping one of these days. Haven't done it yet, but I'm open to it.
Yeah, sounds good. So you have told me about different countries. So what actually inspired you to go travel?
Well, there's a lot of things. I think I have an interest. Everyone will say things like food at different places is really good. It's and the different attitudes that people have, just getting to know different people in different environments, I think is really important. But life sometimes falls into a little bit of a routine. And you don't necessarily have to leave where you're at to break up that routine, but it's a really easy way to break out of the monotony of life. And I think there's multiple dimensions to that. When you see how people live in different parts of the world and the different things that they struggle with, it really makes you appreciate some of the conveniences you have back at home. Or even if you go to a place that has aspects that you wouldn't see in your life here. Places where in very tight-knit communities, as opposed to in a city like Chicago where people are a little bit more geared into the urban grind. If you visit, say, the rural countryside out in different places, like when I was in Morocco just a month ago, we went to a small Berber village, and you see people living in essentially 2,000-year-old concrete huts. And the closeness that these people have in their community, it's really, really beautiful. That's not to say we don't have those communities, even here in the city of Chicago, but it's markedly different, you can see, in the places you travel to. So I think experiencing new things, breaking up the monotony of life is a very important aspect of travel. But one thing which I don't hear a lot of people talking about is actually near the end of every trip, at least for me, I am always happy to return. I love traveling. I love escaping the city every now and then, seeing different things, talking to new people, trying new foods, all of that sort of thing. But I am always happy to come back to Chicago. When I go through the gates of O'Hare and I look around and I say, God, I've missed you, Chicago. And it makes me really appreciate where I'm at. So
yeah. And so where was your first travel?
I think there was a lot of traveling around the United States growing up. We used to do road trips and things like that. But my first travel that I planned or that I took a significant personal investment in that was international was to Israel in the summer of 2013.
So your parents really likes to travel as well. That's the reason why, you said you've gone all over the United States.
Yeah, well, we were never big plane people, at least not back then. I think it's because I grew up with 3 brothers, and it can be very expensive if you're taking trips by plane. But we did road trips all the time. We drove all the way across the United States. I remember one time a 3-day continuous road trip we took from Chicago all the way to California and Los Angeles. So we did that a lot, and we saw most of the United States that way. It was a lot of fun.
I would imagine. So tell us what has been one of the most memorable travels that you have had when things just went wrong.
This actually brings to mind one of the experiences that I had in Morocco when I was there. So we were there was a lot of driving around by bus, and we had to make a ferry in Tangier that would bring us across the Mediterranean into Spain to catch another bus to go to Gibraltar, because the tail end of our trip was in Gibraltar. We were all the way in Fez, which was basically in the middle of the country. So we had a 6-hour bus ride to make a very specific ferry time. And our group had maybe 40, 50 people in it. So we had a lot of trouble actually getting to things on time. I think we were supposed to leave by 2. We didn't quite leave at that time. It was maybe a little bit after, because our ferry was at 8:45 from Tangier. And we had a dinner planned in Tangier as well. Quickly occurred to us that we wouldn't be able to go to the restaurant and actually eat this dinner. We had to either eat it on the boat or figure something out. When we get there, the restaurant did their best to package these into to-go containers, but we quickly realized we wouldn't be able to bring any of this food on the boat with us. So we take the food into the terminal and decide this is where we're going to eat it. I mean, the terminal was empty, and you can imagine just like 50 people in this empty terminal. We start laying the food out on the chairs. We don't have dishes or silverware. I mean, we have some paper plates, but it's not an ideal setup. We're hunched over the containers like excavators, just shoveling food into our mouths, because most of us haven't eaten since breakfast. Oh, wow. And we're starving. And then in the back of our minds, we know we have to go through passport control and put all our luggage on a conveyor to go through security and stuff, because crossing the Mediterranean, you're entering another country. Yeah. And our logistics coordinator was probably freaking out that, someone might get left behind. But I remember when I got on that boat, I went up to her and I said, as frantic as that was, it was so much fun. Like, there's something about the energy of just not knowing how things are going to turn out. Maybe they didn't go according to plan, but that sort of franticness, everything was resolved eventually, thank God. But it was so much fun. It was anxiety-inducing, but a lot of fun.
Okay. And so you said you have had, somehow anxiety. Like, were there people, who felt something different? Were they like, so mad, of other people because the other people were moving so slow?
Well, another thing that happened on the trip that I think brought out different reactions in people was a whole leg of our trip. The people from Detroit who were joining us, none of them got their luggage. It was lost on the way. Oh, because there's no direct flights to Morocco from just about anywhere unless you're in New York, I think. So we all had to get a connecting flight, but in their case, the luggage didn't make it through the second leg. And some people were pretty much of the mind that, listen, whatever happens, happens. I guess we'll shop for clothes when we get there. Some folks didn't take it so well. They were not quite as, it didn't roll off quite as easy. But I think ultimately, by the end of it, we were all having a good time. And yeah, some folks had to wear the same clothes for 5 or 6 days, and it got a little nasty by the end, but I don't think we really cared that much.
Okay. Oh, wow. No, because I know that, some items can be cheap and some items can be expensive over there. Like, it depends, I guess, like where you're buying. And I would imagine how good are you at haggling. And if you like wearing those, long attire that they're wearing, the men are wearing, I think the women also wearing the long hijab. I think that's how you call it.
Yeah, it was funny. We visited a shuk, basically an open air market in Fez one of the oldest cities in Morocco. And one of the places we went to had a massive loom, and they had robes of all kinds. It was 5 floors, just an insane amount of clothes. I remember when I was there thinking, this all looks cool. When am I ever going to wear this? It's not like you walk around Chicago wearing wizard's robes or whatever. But you know, part of the experience is, and maybe there's costume parties and things that you can wear it for and other things of that nature. But the haggling, as you mentioned, it's everywhere. Now, maybe not over small items of food, but pretty much everything that they sell, there's no price listed. You ask them what the price is, they'll give you a number. And I remember my Airbnb host the first day, he said, honestly, whatever number they give you, counteroffer with like 30% of it. He says, don't go half, go even lower than that, because that's what they expect, and they'll do so. Oh no, you're killing me. I have to make money. He says, don't buy into that. What they want to do is they want you to feel a little more sympathetic, so you pay a little bit more. And some of the haggling was so intense. There were 2 brothers on our trip who took pretty much every opportunity they could to haggle over everything, whether it was the clothes, pottery. We went to a tin shop, different items made of tin, things of that nature, and they pulled all of us in on the effort. And we had our tour guide coming in saying, yeah, listen, I'm going to come in here next week with a bigger tour group. They're going to give you tons of money. So yeah, just give these guys a break, you know, cut them some slack, another 5 or 10% off. And it's very intense. They get very aggressive about the haggling. It's a lot of fun. But me personally, I want it to be, if I'm going to do something like that, to buy something, I want it to be something I'm actually going to use. So like I said, wizard's robes, and I don't exactly wear every day in Chicago. So.
No, I'm just laughing because I also went to Tangier, and the funny thing is that, you know, my husband bought me these wedding shoes, like one of those looks triangular, you know, those shoes that men and women actually wear. Everybody's wearing the same thing, and my husband doesn't like to haggle. So he paid whatever is the one. So, you know, I said, okay. I think I've worn that shoes 2 times. Yeah, because you know, it's just the spur of the moment. Like, okay, this looks interesting. And then I didn't know he'd be serious about buying it. So I understand that you were in a tour, so together with this group. So do you think you're going to do that again, like being with 50 people in a tour?
I think there's different kinds of trips.
Okay.
I personally have had the most profound experiences traveling when I did it by myself. Mm-hmm. I've traveled with one other person many times. I've done this tour traveling thing a few times. I think it is something I will do again. I don't know if it'll be the very next trip I do. I think I'm a little overdue for a solo trip. Well, I think we all could probably use a little bit more traveling these days. Some of us haven't done it in years. But ultimately, I think the benefit of a tour is if it's a land you're unfamiliar with. In the case of Morocco, I had some clue of the history. We talked about it as a group a little bit beforehand. But when you're going there with someone who has an agenda, who's maybe led a trip or 2 before, they can bring you to specific sites that you otherwise wouldn't think of visiting. I mean, one of the things I mentioned before, the Berber village, it was an amazing, profound experience going there, seeing the way these people lived, and they couldn't really speak to us beyond saying hello, but they were able to make us some tea. And it's so funny too, because the way they put sugar in the tea, they don't take little packets of sweet and low. They have a big rock of sugar, and they take a chisel and just hack off a chunk of it and throw it in there. Things like that are really only possible when you're being led with someone with very specific local knowledge. That's the benefit of something like a tour. But the flexibility and kind of fly-by-seat-of-the-pants, maybe a little bit anxiety-inducing nature of traveling solo, I think is more at the heart of what I generally look for when it comes to travel. But yeah, I'd do a tour trip again. Maybe not the next one, though.
Yeah, okay. So where else are the travel destinations you have in mind?
Well, there's a very long list. I am going to Germany in the month, so that's on the list, of course. I have a lot of destinations I want to visit in South America. I'm hoping to brush up on my Spanish before I do that, but Argentina I've been thinking about for a while. I met a whole bunch of Argentinians when I was in Spain a couple years ago. Just totally insane crew in a good way. A lot of fun. And they told me whenever I was in Buenos Aires that I should give them a shout. So I'm looking forward to that. Peru, both the city life in Lima and places like that, as well as, of course, Machu Picchu and all the hiking around there. I've heard only good things about all of that. Chile as well, Colombia. There are a lot of places in Mexico I haven't been. I did say I've been to Russia. There's a couple places in Eastern Europe that I would like to visit when things quiet down a little bit out there, of course. But that's been on the list too, and a little bit more off the beaten path, you would say. As well as a lot of Southeast Asia. It's a little bit far. It'd probably have to, a second stop on a longer trip where I stop over at some other place, maybe include Australia and New Zealand in there. But I've heard a lot of good things about those areas too. So I'm hoping to eventually cross all those off the list.
Yay! That's wonderful because wow, you're gonna be busy. But anyway, you have a lot of time still.
Sure.
So I hope that we have much more time. But anyway, in this talk show, you can be your own Rick, Steve, Samantha Brown, or Peter Greenberg. So if you're an expert in the industry, you're in the travel industry, or you're just one of those people who just is a travel enthusiast, we want to have you over here because we want to find out how have you been doing your travels and how you have been enjoying everything. And of course there's a big world out there, and if you don't get to try at least visiting one place, then I guess that you're missing out. So thank you so much again for your time, Corey, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.